Hi, Ms. Lindsay here to discuss solving equations involving fractions. And this is my friend the Math Wizard, who will make all your fraction headaches disappear. We call this method Fraction Be Gone. So, let's get to it. Fractions are annoying, no doubt about it. But the wizard will take care of all your fractions if you can just find the least common multiple, the smallest number that both or all the denominators will divide into. In this case, our denominators are a 2 and a 5. So the smallest number that 2 and 5 evenly divide into is 10. So we're going to multiply both sides of the equation by 10. And in order to do this, we're going to have to distribute the 10. And I like to call this multiplying through by 10, because each term will be multiplied by 10, and that will clear every denominator and get rid of the fraction. All we need to do is reduce. 10 divided by 2 is 5, so this gives us a 5x. 10 divided by 5 is 2, and 2 times 3 is 6, so that gives us a plus 6. There's no fraction on the right side of the equation, so we just multiply 10 times 3 and we get 30. Now we simply solve. Subtract 6 from both sides. 5x equals 24. Divide both sides by 5. And we get x equals 24 over 5. Now, there's absolutely nothing to worry about if you have a fraction as an answer. You don't need to change this to a decimal. It's perfectly fine. Your calculator will be able to check this for you quite nicely, and your calculator knows very well how to handle fractions. All you have to remember is substitute the fraction that you got as your answer in for x in your original equation. Hit enter, and you should have a match. 3 equals 3. It's a check. Let's try another one. In this one, there are two fractions that have two denominators, 5 and 3. 5 and 3 both divide evenly into 15, so the LCM is 15. You could multiply the 5 and the 3 and get 15 and do it that way. That would work. You get a perfectly usable common multiple. We're going to multiply each term here by 15. And where we can, we're going to reduce. The 15x doesn't reduce, but 5 goes into 15, and 3 goes into 15. We're going to clean that up a little bit, and 15x plus 6 equals negative 5. Solve that by subtracting 6, dividing by 15, and you have a solution for x. X equals negative 11 over 15. In order to check this with the calculator, all you need to do is substitute 11 over 15 where you see x. I would use parentheses. Check that the left side equals the right side, and it does. Both of them work out to be negative 1/3 or negative 0.3 repeated. On the next slide, we have three fractions. If you notice, the 2, the 3, and the 6 all divide into 6. If we multiplied them together, we would get 54, or we'd get 36, a much larger number, and there's really no reason for that. 6 works fine. So we're going to multiply each term by 6. It's our LCD. We're going to reduce the fractions, and then we're going to simplify by multiplying the result reduction and we get 4x minus 12 equals 9x plus 1. Now we need to collect the variables on one side, so I chose to get rid of the 4x by subtracting 4x from both sides, from here. And your variable's on the right side, but no problem. Just subtract 1, divide by 5, and we get a solution, negative 13 over 5 equals x. Again, we're going to substitute negative 13 over 5 everywhere we see x. And in this case, it's in two different places. Make sure when you use your calculator, you substitute using the parentheses. And as long as we get both sides to match, after we sub them in, and it is, we have a correct solution. Now, speaking of parentheses, what if we do have parentheses in the original equation? Well, we're not going to look inside those parentheses because until this 3 over 2 gets distributed, we won't be able to use fraction begone or the least common multiple. You cannot go inside the parentheses when you use the least common multiple. So what we're going to do is use our calculator and the math frac feature on the calculator to multiply the fractions. If you can just multiply on your calculator, as I did right over here, 3 over 2 times 5 over 9, when you hit enter, you do get this repeating decimal. Now we'd like that to be a fraction, and then we can get rid of the denominator. So we have this feature on this graphing calculator called Math Frac. The Math button is right here under this green button. If you hit that Math button, you'll get a menu. That first option is Math Frac. If you hit that, it'll ask you if you want your answer as a fraction. Hit enter again, and there you have it. You have 5/6, so now you have 5/6 x. We do that again with 3/2 times 2/9. 3/2 times 4/27, and you'll end up with 2/9. So here, we end up with a nice clean problem, and we solve it just as we did the others. We find the LCD, which is 18. 6 times 3 is 18. 9 times 2 is 18. Multiply through by 18. Simplify. Simplify again. Subtract 4 from both sides. Divide by 15. And if you want, you have 50 over 15, which can be reduced. You can try the Math Frac feature on your calculator again. Simply do 50 divided by 15 and go through the Math Frac feature again. Again, you can check on the calculator. Just make sure that you use the parentheses properly. The parentheses that are given in the problem have to be there, of course, but use parentheses when you substitute your answer, 10 over 3, in for x. Okay, and what if we have a variable in the denominator? Well, we're just going to use it as part of the LCD. So here, x is going to be part of the LCD. And of course, we also have a 9 and a 3, so we're going to have 9 as part of the LCD. So the LCD is going to have a 9, and an x, the LCD is 9x. Now you're going to multiply through by 9x. So each term is going to get multiplied by 9x. So what I'm going to do here is write in, make sure you write it on the top, because remember, you want the denominators to go away. I'm going to write a 9x on the top so that I make sure that each of these terms is going to get multiplied by 9x. So here the x's go away. I'm left with 9 times 7. Here the 9's cancel out. I'm left with 2 times x. And here the x's cancel out, and the 3 divides into 9, leaving us 3. And now when we multiply through that out, we get 63 plus 2x equals negative 15. Subtract 63 from both sides, divide by 2, and you get a final answer of x equals negative 39. Again, we check that. Make very, very certain when you check this that you use the parentheses when you're substituting in for the denominator. In other words, again, this 3 and this x are together. You need to enclose those the 3 and the x in the parentheses. So the 3 times the negative 39 get enclosed in parentheses. Otherwise, the calculator will end up multiplying instead of dividing. And here's a little bit of a challenge. The only reason that this is a little bit different is our denominator is actually an expression, in this case a binomial. So what I'm going to do is protect that with parentheses to make sure that you and everybody else knows that this 2 and this 2 are not the same thing. The 2 here is part of the x plus 2. So that is actually going to be part of your LCM. The other part of your LCM is going to come from the 2 and the 4. Since 2 divides evenly into 4, your LCM is going to be 4 times x plus 2. And again, they're separate. So when I multiply through by 4 times x plus 2, I'm going to write an extra one of these for this middle term, 4 times x plus 2. And when I cancel, this x plus 2 cancels out as an entire package. The whole thing goes. So I'm left with 4 times 2. 2 goes into 4 twice. And I'm just going to circle this negative here to make sure I remember it. And this 4 divides with the 4. So what I have left when I multiply everything together is 4 times 2, which is 8, minus 2 times x plus 2 equals negative 3 times x plus 2. Now I'm going to have to distribute that out. When that distributes, I get 8 minus 2x minus 4 equals negative 3 minus 6. I'm just going to combine here the 8 and the negative 4. That gives me negative 2x plus 4 equals negative 3x. And now I'm going to add 3x to both sides to collect my variables all on the right side of the equal sign. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. I'll do that all in one step. Saves a little space. And, whoops, I end up with x equals negative 10. Again, I can check that on the calculator, make sure you properly use the parentheses, and you end up with a match, negative 0.75, negative 0.75. So if you need to, you can replay this video to make sure that you understand. We will answer your questions and we'll do some practice at your next class. Have a great day, and I'll see you then.